So Snowden expertly dodged comments specifically about Trump. But what do you make, Jamil, about the prospect of an NSA, a national security agency, that Donald Trump has the keys to? What does it mean for privacy? What does it mean for security?
Well, look, I mean, I think that the NSA is an important institution in our government. There are lots of laws and processes around it. The president is limited in his ability to do things when it comes to the intelligence community. But at the end of the day, look, Donald Trump was a candidate for a while. Now he's the president. I think it's a very different role, very different responsibility. And you saw a change in his tone and his approach, even in his speech right after he was elected. So, I think it's hard to make assumptions at this point. But I think the thing to focus on is that, the U.S. government has tremendous capabilities, and they've always been directed at the right thing, which is collecting intelligence to protect our nation. And that's where I think it'll remain aimed.
And what about the U.S. relationship with Russia? I mean, do you see a friendlier relationship as a result of this? And what does that actually mean for American citizens?
Well, it's funny to hear all this concern about the friendly relationship with Russia. Of course, it was the Obama administration that sought a reset with Russia and to create a friendlier relationship. Look, Russia is an important nation in the world, and Russia's gotten away with a lot recently in the last 8 years. They've become more influential in the Middle East. They've flown active operations against ISIS in support of Assad. You've seen them get very involved in Eastern Europe in a very aggressive way. So we've got to figure out how to deal with Russia and really confront their activities. And whether that's through a friendly relationship, through a carrot on one hand and a stick on the other, we've got to figure out how to deal with Russia. And to be frank about it, the current administration has not done a good job and have allowed Russia to become more aggressive and more influential.
The Russian presidential spokesperson said today that he expects there will still be disagreements between the United States and Russia. You can't simply make those disagreements go away. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Russia has never interfered in domestic politics in the United States, despite what was said about Russia, despite what was said about Putin. Official Moscow, President Putin, has never interfered, has never indicated his favorite candidate.
Responding there to reports that Russia was behind hacks of the U.S. election. Also, one of Russia's top diplomats today suggested that there were contacts between Russia and Trump's entourage, which the Trump camp has vehemently denied. What do you make of this back and forth?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, you notice the Russian individual statements were very careful. He said official Russia has involved. Well, of course, we know that in Russia, there is no really difference between official Russia and unofficial Russia. Russia oftentimes, particularly in cyberspace, uses third-party proxies to conduct their activities. And if you look at the U.S. intelligence community's analysis, they are confident that the activities to disclose emails and the WikiLeaks leaks and the like were directed by Russia and by their senior-most leaders. So either you believe the Russian official, you believe the U.S. intelligence community, either way. Now, on this point of who their favorite candidate was and whether they're excited about Donald Trump being elected, I wouldn't put so much stock in that. And that's in part because the truth is, a country like Russia, and frankly any other country, what they're really looking for is sort of stability and leadership. And they're looking for a leader they can predict the actions of. And to be honest, Donald Trump has been fairly unpredictable, for good and for bad, in this election cycle. And so I doubt that Russia was really hugely supporting Donald Trump because he's more unpredictable, I think, than a Hillary Clinton or even a Barack Obama.
Interesting. We spoke to a security expert yesterday who suggested that now that the U.S., or at least some people behind the scenes, have determined that they believe that Russia was behind these hacks of the U.S. election, that there could be retaliation from the U.S. against Russia. Do you see the U.S. hacking Russia now as a result of what happened over the last several months?
Look, I think there is no doubt there has to be a response, right? And the question is, does that response have to take place in cyberspace, or could it take place through some other methodology? And does it have to be overt, or could it be covert? I think that there will be a response. I think there has to be a response because this type of behavior, whether it's Russia trying to get involved in U.S. elections, or China building islands in the South China Sea, or ISIS being increasingly aggressive in the Middle East, we have to respond to those things. And we've seen what 8 years of a no robust response has done. It's allowed these actors to get away with more. And I think you'll see and you would have seen whether it was a Clinton or a Trump administration, you'll see a more aggressive response, and there has to be one, and it's important that we have one, whether it's overt or covert, and whether it uses cyber or not.
What about when it comes to surveillance? Trump didn't hold back criticizing Apple when they wouldn't or said that they couldn't unlock the phone of the San Bernardino shooter, a terrorist, essentially. That said, we've seen some changes in U.S. surveillance programs as a result of Edward Snowden's revelations. Do you see Trump rolling back some of the changes that have happened so far, or changing the status quo when it comes to the existing surveillance of American citizens?
Yeah, look, I don't know what the Trump administration plans, but what I can tell you is there are certain things that we have done voluntarily to weaken our surveillance capabilities, like instituting PPD 28, which the administration put in place, which really has provided, U.S.-like, American-like protections to foreigners located overseas. Doesn't make a lot of sense in a world that's becoming increasingly dangerous. And so I think you will see an effort by Republicans in Congress and by the administration to consider how we ought to address our surveillance laws at a time of increasing national threat. Part of that also involves reauthorizing the 702 program, which both the Obama and Bush administrations have said was one of our most effective surveillance methods. And so I think you will see an effort to ensure that we have strong surveillance, but not because it's Donald Trump, but because it's the right thing for our national security.